Okay, so this is Lori. I am bringing the meeting to, I'm starting it. I'm not very familiar with this role, so you'll just need to be patient with me. But I am going to go down the agenda. We have present with us 4 of our 5 committee members, Tom and Lori and Guy and Lynn. Ran is traveling, and we seem to have a visitor, Harvey Rubenstein. I'd like to welcome you all to the meeting, and I hope it goes well, and feel free to pipe up if you think I need to do something differently. Our first item on the agenda is to approve the agenda. Does anybody have anything that they need to say about that item?
If you have the discussion of your suggestion for a poll later in the meeting, do you have that on the agenda?
Let's see. That is actually not on the agenda, and I was gonna see if we could do it as new business at the end of this meeting, or it will be on the agenda for the next meeting.
We're actually not meant to discuss anything not on the agenda, so that's fine. Let's do it next time.
You can also amend the agenda as long as it's not like a giant deal that people might be object to.
Right.
Okay, fair enough.
So,
But I did have comments on that I'd sent Lori, but obviously I didn't send it to everybody else.
so would we like to amend the agenda to add a discussion of the questionnaire that we're gonna present at the NCAC April meeting? Would we like to add it to the agenda today at the end if we have time?
Well, if it's at the end, I won't be there.
Okay,
I'm
then
gonna have to leave you.
would we like to add that to the agenda for the next meeting?
I would, yeah.
Okay, so let's plan on that for the next meeting, and you can think about things between now and then.
Okay, Lynn, write that down.
Okay, so having said that, do we approve the agenda as it's written?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and I see no objection from Lynn, and I got a positive from Guy and Tom, so I will say that the agenda is approved. Does anyone have anything to amend or on the February 5th meeting minutes?
No.
Okay, so having not heard anything to amend, I'm gonna say that we have approved the February meeting minutes with no, unless I hear an objection.
By the way, that's a screw up on my part. It should be the February 19th meeting minutes.
Okay.
But
Does
same
anyone-
thing.
Does anyone have anything to amend on the February 19th meeting minutes? Okay, they are approved. Does any, can I hear any conflict of interest declarations?
No conflict of interest from
Nope.
from Tom.
Not for Guy.
Not for Lori. Lynn, do you have any conflict of interest?
No, I do not.
Okay, so there's no conflict of interest. So we are on to the next agenda item is a report from Guy, 2001 recommendations.
So quick question. I don't know what our protocol is, but I do think when we have guests at this meeting, they should introduce themselves, and I actually prefer people to turn their screens on, but I don't think we have to require that, but I do think people should explain their participation.
Okay, Harvey, are you willing to
Sure.
check in?
I'm Harvey Rubenstein, property owner in Neskowin. Our property has been in our family since the 70s. I'm here just to observe. My phone is off because I'm on my mobile phone.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Guy.
So I have not been able to connect with Sarah to get a planner to go over with me to be specific about which of these recommendations are still were not addressed or addressed. I can take a stab at them, but what I want to do is prepare a document that's really comes out of the community planning department that says specifically how these things were changed or adopted or not. So that has not been done, and for whatever reason, remember Sarah's objection last time was, which I never understood, and Rand tried to intervene. Sarah says, well, this is something that we need to discuss here at the meeting, at our committee meeting, before I can go ahead and work with a planner. And we tried to say, Sarah, this is not me acting on my own. It's a committee assignment. It's part of our agenda and whatever, but it's not gone through, and Sarah's not been available much, so it's not happened. But my intention is, and I think one thing Sarah says, we're, kind of have we discussed where this is going to go? How I envision this is that, again, it would be an appendix. We would write out it's part of our record. I pulled out all the recommendations from 1999 or 2001 when it was finally approved. So I pulled out all the recommendations. And my intention is to list each one, write them up a little better, and then respond to each one, what has been done or not done with them. And then that would be as a reference in the appendix. So if everybody sees that is okay, then I can move forward, hopefully with Sarah or one of the planners and go through that.
So Guy, do you think that it would be helpful for us to vote on the recommendation that you do this? Would that satisfy Sarah's concerns?
I don't know with the vote, but I just think it's, if we all agree that that it's on the agenda, I mean, it's part of my assignment, and we've all agreed. I just think maybe as part of this meeting, we could make as part of the minutes that the committee, is waiting on Guy to work with the community planning department to produce a document that shows how have these recommendations been adopted or not. If
I
that's
think
enough to put it in the minutes, that would be great.
I think actually we're waiting on a response rather than waiting on Guy.
Right, thanks.
The other thing is we could add the word that the committee authorized Guy to seek the or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Words to that effect, I think are appropriate.
Yeah.
So
Guy,
since
one
this
more
is-
before we go on
ahead.
from that. Guy, could you forward that list, that consolidated list to me? Because what I'll do is I'll start thinking about how I can incorporate that into the document going forward. Because what I'd like to do is I'd like to have a chart that's, yes, we made that. Yeah, no, we didn't. But have all of them there so that I can cherry pick the ones that are still outstanding and put them in the body.
So it's part of our record. Jeff put it on our Google Doc thing.
Okay,
But I can
I'll
send
look
it to you individually too, Tom.
if it's on the doc, that's fine.
Okay.
I'll pick it up. Thanks.
So quick, two things. One is, Guy, I've got the document in front of me. And so you're talking about things like adopt erosion, sediment control, and grading permit requirements for ground disturbing activities, or are you in a different part of the document?
No, that's it. That's the document. And that has been done, by the way. I happen to know that only
Right.
because of my work on
I
the
guess my question was,
Go ahead.
with Sarah not on this call, do we know why? I don't recall what her issue was with proceeding on this.
She seemed to indicate that I was not authorized, that the committee hadn't decided how to proceed on dealing with the recommendations from 2001.
Right.
And Rand wrote her and said, we have decided, Guy has been asked to do this. So, and she never responded back to that. So
Okay.
I don't get the hang up, but, and I don't want to take her time. I know a couple of other planners and I could sit down with them and in 10 minutes, we could do this. So anyways, we're working on it.
Okay,
All right, so the report from Guy on number 5 is that he's working on it and he needs cooperation from the county.
No, don't say I need cooperation from the county.
He needs
Oh, geez, no.
information from the county?
Waiting
That I
on response.
that I hope to work together with the county planner to respond to these.
Okay,
Yes, you gotta massage this.
you're better at that than me. Probably more experience.
All right.
All
Well, why
right,
don't we have Lynn read back what she's gonna put in the minutes?
You don't
before we end the
we
meeting?
trust Lynn.
so, and just remember, I'm taking notes, I'm not doing formal minutes. So if you're expecting formal minutes, you won't see them, and if we need
No.
formal minutes, we need to get someone else to do them, because I just don't have the bandwidth.
No. It's all right.
Okay,
We can amend the minutes to, with suggestions. With notes you have, we can review the video and put a polish on it. And I'll suggest an update to the minutes based on that. So just go with what you got. And I think I have a sense of what needs to be done.
great, thank you.
Oh, by the way, in terms of putting things on the website, I can also do that. So if you want to send me the document rather than bothering Jeff, I can do that.
All right.
okay.
Well,
Are we-
Jeff said he didn't have enough to do. We were just like,
Well, that's true.
Okay, we're gonna move on to number 6, which says Lori or Lynn, discussion of approaches to polling based on Lynn's concerns and the test case of the vision and values. So Lynn, I'm hoping, since we decided we're just gonna discuss the exact questions for the questionnaire that happens on our next agenda, could you just talk in general about how you think that we can approach questionnaires and solicit input from the public in a way that's effective, but doesn't get into some of the legal concerns that you have?
Yes, when I got your email this morning, Lori, I thought it was really clear that that's a simple format to say, okay, here's, how do you feel about these values that were adopted previously? You know, respond accordingly. Great. Whoever's in the room responds. The reason that I have such a strong position on polling is a science. And we're not polling. We're not polling unless we identify a population, unless we identify a margin of error, unless we ensure that people are responding, you know, consecutively, et cetera, et cetera. So to me, I think that if we say that it's a questionnaire and that all participants are encouraged to respond and everyone can respond to any questionnaire once, then that is what it is. And we can say to people who say, yeah, it's not a poll, we can say, yeah, it's not a poll. It's a questionnaire. And the people who were concerned enough to participate in the meeting and fill it out responded, and that's of value. Is it scientific? No. Do we have the resources to do professional polling? No. Do we have, I had talked about doing a Survey Monkey or something. I think that was even that was beyond our capacity to execute successfully. So as long as we just say it's a questionnaire, that's what the state requirement is to, ask the community what they want their future to be. And I think it has a less, we're not promising something we're not delivering. And it also sounds a little less like, we took a poll and it said X, because that's where the point of conflict will be. People will say you didn't take, and
I'd like to comment on that.
So
I think we're using polling as a shorthand because that's what Zoom uses as a questionnaire mechanism. So I don't believe there was any intention to represent a formal poll. So it's still going to be called a poll because that's what Zoom calls it.
Well, I actually disagree with that pretty strongly.
Well,
I don't,
You can
Zoom,
disagree, but
Zoom
the
is,
Zoom says what it is.
Can I pop in here?
Sure.
yep,
So almost certainly the medium we will use this for is a Google form, not because Zoom is just for in meetings, and this is something that we want to send out.
No,
Um,
I'm sorry. I was responding to the wrong thing. Had an email this morning that I responded to, talked about having a poll at a meeting.
Right, and if we do polls in like yes, Google or Zoom has a feature called polls. We use those all the time. We used them in the last meeting, which I don't think you attended, Lynn, and plan is we're going to use them before, and I don't think we're going to set the expectation that they're conducting a scientific poll. But I think your concern is well taken, and I think if we publish anything, we call it a questionnaire, or just to be clear that it's not a scientific poll, I think we'll be fine.
that's right. I
So,
agree.
yeah, regardless of what Zoom calls it, as long as we all use the word questionnaire in anything we speak at the meeting or write at the meeting, if we call it a questionnaire, that might cause less confusion.
Yep.
Okay. Good idea. I was unaware of the special meaning in the word poll.
I think when we get down to in where Lynn's concerns, we'll have to pay particular attention to is when, right now we're collecting kind of a sense of the community in general to help guide us focus on things. But when we go to the community with our, let's say, first draft, for lack of a better term, but a draft of, let's say, this a community values statement, and here's what we see as Nesco values. That's where we're going to have to be, and there it'll really be more voting if we're ready for voting. And I don't know how we do. If we'll have to decide that when we get there. Let's say when we get to a point where okay, we've got a draft. How do we get feedback? Do we want the community to vote on this draft, or do we want still to get feedback on the draft? And that's going to be a gray thing that we'll have to think through, but I don't think we're there yet. So,
Okay, Guy, I'm going to have to leave, unfortunately. But one of the things that we've done in the bylaws committee is have feedback sessions. And I think
Yeah.
we can do the same here. Just take a section and say, this is the only thing we're covering. Open it up for the community to participate or not. And we can get some direct feedback. It's been invaluable in the bylaws committee. We have changed a lot based on feedback.
Okay.
So, sorry, I gotta leave.
Okay.
sorry, Tom. Yeah.
Are we ready to move to the next agenda item is back to Guy and Tom, though Tom is not here. About their research into the conditional uses in each of the Nescoin zones.
Right. So, when we take my planning commission hat off for a minute, when the county looks at a permit to do something, the first thing it does is to look at what the zoning requirements are for that particular property. And the first there's two things that a project may come under. It may come under an outright use, and I'll talk about that in a second, or it may come under a conditional use. And the conditional uses are the ones that obviously cause the most concern, the most controversy, and usually a lot of times end up with the planning commission to deal with. So let's just take Nescoin as this is one example. There's, as you know, there's several zones in Nescoin, residential zones, but let's take Nescoin R1, which I we might be in R2. No, there's no R2, but we're in R1, probably I am, but I think you all are in R1. So when you look at outright uses, one, single family dwelling. One you may not know is farm and forest uses in a residential zone, which is something we can consider. Now, remember, these uses are things that we can recommend changes to, given that there's going to have to be a Measure 48 notice anyways with their Measure 56, I think it is, Measure 56 notice with some of the things that we're going to probably come through with recommendations. So might as well just batch it all together. Home occupations, according to the provisions, and a lot of these home occupations, I know that, for instance, the person on McMinnville that every Christmas has kind of a Christmas store or whatever they call that, that's allowed in a residential area as an outright use. Public park and a recreation area, public utility lines, mobile homes if you're involved in building a house and you can put a mobile home up there until the house is done. Foster family homes. And then conditionally, so if you say I want to, and there's now another whole set of criteria. If you come and say, I live in Neskowin residential 1 zone, but I want to do X, and it's a condition, it's listed under a conditional use. And so then you start, and there's a different process, which I'll talk about in a minute. So among the conditional uses in Neskowin R1, two family dwellings, a planned development. And that's just simply how you can bypass some of the laws about how far houses have to be away from each other, all this kind of stuff, and you can pack things together. You can kind of have like a mini plan development. A large plan development was what they were going to do across 101 and on the land that the Tates bought. They were going to have 125 houses over there in a planned development. Churches and schools are a conditional use in a residential zone in Neskowin. A nonprofit community building, utility stations and power transmission lines. Now that one I want you to think of, remember. The utility substation and power transmission line are allowed on the on Neskowin residential 1. Swimming, tennis, racquetball, and similar facilities. Golf courses and associated facilities. Fire and ambulance stations, zone, residential 1 zone. Towers for communication, wind energy conversion system, structures having similar impacts. Water supply or treatment facilities, aquaculture facilities, cottage industries, which happens at McMinnville, accessory structures, cemeteries, bed and breakfasts, residential care communities, home occupations. So those are just a list of some of the things in the residential zone. Now, when I list these things, and most of them sound, like silly, churches and schools. Can you imagine somebody having a church or school, on Salem or McMinnville Street? You don't. But I can tell you the things that people never imagine happen because they end up coming to us. Now, what protects you from the craziness, especially in these conditional uses, and let me see if I can get to this, is there's 4 criteria by which conditional uses have to go through to be approved. Well, let's see if I could. So the first one is the use is listed as a conditional use in the underlying zone. So all the things I just read for Nescoin Residential 1, that whatever use has to be listed in that conditional use. That's the first criteria. There's going to be 4 or 6 actually. The use is consistent with the applicable goals and policies of the comprehensive plan. Very broad language, and I can tell you that it's so broad that it never leads to a good conclusion, at least to the planning commission. The parcel is suitable for the proposed use considering its size, shape, location, topography, existence of improvements, and natural features. The proposed use will not alter the character of the surrounding area in a manner which substantially limits, impairs, or prevents the use of surrounding properties for the permitted use listed in the underlying zone. This is probably the key one that gets used. So if I wanted on McMinnville to put something that's a conditional use that would totally just be out of place and disrupt the McMinnville as a residential community, you would argue that condition number 4, conditional use criteria number 4, it doesn't meet. It's out of place and interferes with the residential character of McMinnville. You can argue that. The proposed use will not have detrimental effect on existing solar energy. That's kind of a state requirement. But the proposed use is timely, considering the adequacy of public facilities and services existing or planned and for the area affected by this use. One that hardly gets used. Number 4, as I just said, is it out of place? Does it not fit? Is the one, and because it's so subjective, it gets argued. So it has to meet these 6 criteria. So when you come forward and say, I want to build a miniature golf course on whatever street, McMinnville, we would go through these 6 criteria to say, does it meet these criteria? And you could kind of say it's listed as one of the potential uses, because I think golf courses is actually a conditional use that you can have in a residential area. Here's one thing why it's important to remove things that you don't see or make clear about things that you don't see happening in your area. And Tierra del Mar is like a good example. So Tierra del Mar, in their residential zone, along the beachfront property, they had allowing transmission facilities. Everybody at the time understood that to mean transmission facilities for the electric and maybe cable when cable came and all that. But what happened, of course, was Facebook came along and said, we want to buy one of these houses, tear it down, or not, there wasn't a house there, it was a property, empty property. We want to build a facility there that's going to service our cable that's going to go across to, I think, Taiwan or whatever, I can't quite remember. So if you go into Tierra del Mar and you drive into Tierra del Mar, look off to the left, you'll see this right in the middle of these beachfront homes is a substation for Facebook that's with a vault and everything that protects its cable going over to Asia. That was something that was very controversial. I mean, the Tierra del Mar people took it to, I think, to the Court of Appeals eventually. Tillamook County approved that because a conditional use was transmission lines. And they said that this cable for Facebook to Asia was a transmission line. Now, if you go to the comprehensive plan for Tillamook County, it says that these transmission lines have to serve the local community. And Facebook's argument was, well, Facebook does serve the local community. You can log on to Facebook. Well, I can tell you that cable that goes across to Asia was not necessarily for the benefit of Tierra del Mar. It went over to Prineville directly. So this is why it's important to make sure we go through every zone in Nescoin, and we especially look at the conditional uses. Now, some of the outright uses, those are going to be hard to change. But the conditional uses, which if you look at the recommendations in 2001, they asked for some of these to be removed, and they were never removed. So I think it's something that needs to be addressed. I don't know how we want to do it with the community, whether, you know, we put the list out and say, you know, literally vote on, do you want to be okay for golf courses as a use in a residential one area? I don't know. And part of it is cleaning up things. And again, it seems silly. And I can tell you, almost every community in my time, 7 years, whatever, on the Planning Commission, has been faced with a controversial conditional use approval. And so it seems, you know, like, oh, this will never happen, and then it happens. So I don't know how we're going to proceed with this. It's something I think we as a committee can talk about, how we put these things out to our community and say, you know, or do we as a committee go through and just remove the things that we don't think fit our values and vision of Nescoin and submit it and show people what we took out? I mean, that's another way of doing it. Rather than go ahead.
One way would be to do what you just said, present what the committee is recommending with the people, a way for them to agree, disagree, maybe on every single one, or maybe just as a package, and then list what we've removed and let people react to those things, and then circle back depending on, you know, what people react to the ones that we've removed. But start with a suggestion of what we, like you said, what we think fits the value statement that we come up with prior to doing this. My other question is, have other communities gotten their recommendations ratified by the county, or like, was it unusual that the things we suggested weren't implemented?
That's a good question. I don't know, Sarah. I think Sarah may have been on, she wasn't a planner for the county at the time, 2001, when we submitted it. And to be honest, I don't know why our recommendations were not followed. I would be in, you know, just my
So,
nature. Go ahead.
I
Go
don't,
ahead.
this may be helpful, is that as Guy pointed out at our first meeting, and part of what I'm thinking as we're having this conversation is we have this requirement to educate people before they can even think about what they'd take off a conditional use list. Because most people have not been thinking about conditional uses in their daily lives. You know, that it's just not, it's part of the land use culture, not part of general popular culture. And so part of what, you know, the community plans, as Guy pointed out in that first meeting, are the kind of the vision, and here's who we want to be, and here's how we want to be it. And then the zoning laws become, and ordinances become, where the rubber hits the road. And there is a lot of expertise in Oregon after, 50 years of land use planning in the conditional use process, right? There are lawyers who do nothing but the conditional use process. There are developers who have conditional use process people on their staff. It's very much an inside baseball kind of thing. So I think it would concern me for us as a group just to say, let's take these conditional uses out ourselves, unless we fully understand the implications of that. And we'd have to have some orientation and training just to do that. Not training, but we'd have to have some orientation. And it's also kind of starts from a negative. We've taken all these things out. I think part of what the expectation was when this process was put in motion, which I think is in retrospect very unrealistic, is that you would go into a community meeting and people would have this robust discussion about the zoning laws and what conditional uses to take out, and then they'd agree to it, and then that was what would happen. And that is not, that isn't the case. We're not the only community that put a community plan on the table and suggested things happen, and things didn't happen, because it isn't where the rubber meets the road. The zoning ordinances, if you're a developer, if you're a lawyer, if you're someone trying to get a home business in your extra lot at your house in a conditional use zone, that's where people engage successfully. So that's not an answer or an advocacy comment on my part. It's just a thinking about how we work with people to get there. It does seem possible. I haven't looked at the conditional use list in all the zones. It does seem possible that we could create just a document that says, here's the, because Nesco's so tiny, it's be impossible in Portland. Here's the zones. Here's the conditional uses currently or proposed in 2001. Room full of people who've just validated or changed our value statement, whichever it is. Are there any red flags here for you? Is there anything here that you look at and immediately say, gee, I don't think we should have gas stations on oceanfront property in the middle of residential property or whatever. I don't think we should have gas stations next to natural resource areas or et cetera. If we as a committee looked at that list by zone, if Sarah or someone at the county could give us that list, and we could just look at it and say, whoa, this one's really out of whack. But some of these others, we might want to talk to people. That seems to me the easiest way. And Guy, your explanation is just perfect of what a conditional use is and why it's important in zoning ordinances. It might be a nice way to bridge from, we're doing the plan, which is the value set, and now we're going to look at how the rubber meets the road. That's just my broad thinking.
Right. And the good thing is we have the recommendations from 2001. So like a lot of things, we could say, we could go to the county and say, tell us why these were rejected. We could start there. I mean, that could be the first step. And they say, oh, no, we just kind of missed it. It's okay. These should have been done, blah, blah, blah. And then that makes some of those things easier.
Yep.
There's some things that have come along, and part of, and I agree with you, Lynn, that the community in general, I mean, it hurts my heart to think that conditional use is not part of the normal culture, that you don't sit around at your dinner tables talking about conditional use.
I didn't say I don't talk about conditional
You
use.
were at DLCD, you know that.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's take another, and I think we need to, and maybe it is through examples. I gave you one about Tierra del Mar. I had another one in Netarts where they wanted to put a windmill on top of the building on the beach. There's nothing to prevent that because wind and solar installations are really protected in Oregon. You notice that one of them is like, you can do this as long as it doesn't interfere with wind or solar, energy producers. Well, Nescoin may want to say, we don't want houses along the beach to have a 20-foot pole of a windmill whipping around, making noise when you go down to the beach.
Right.
So that's, no one would ever think of that. But I'll tell you, Netarts didn't think it. Another one of Netarts was, And this is the reason why when the descriptive things we get in our plan are so critical. Because if the use is unclear, and that conditional use number 4, where it says, does it fit within what the community has in mind for this area? You know, how you describe in general. I mean, that's that community fit conditional use criteria. That's very subjective. So where does I can tell you as a planning commissioner, where do we turn? We turn to the comp plan. What does it say about, in this case, there was a NETART. What does NETART say in its part of the comp plan about what they view as community and how they want? So a guy wants to take and build and this may have gone up to VLCD, but he wants to turn a restaurant into a strip club, and he wants to put a big neon sign, you know, with a stripper out there, you know, with one of these flashing things. And the community went crazy. But as it turned out, you know, it comes to the county and it's like, well, let's see, you know, I guess there's nothing that says you can't have that kind of business. It's in a commercial area. How about the sign? I mean, and then it gets down to the sign. Can you have a sign like that out front flashing, you know, with a stripper, whatever? You know, who would have ever thought that that would be an issue in Oceanside? But it was. And then you get, you know, takings arguments and other kinds of things going on. So the message for the community is expect the unexpected when it comes to land use in terms of requests. That's why these things are important, to be clear, precise. That's why our descriptions of the community have to be, you know, more than we have to have a nice family feel, you know, that kind of stuff. It's got to be more descriptive that people who are making these decisions about land use can go to and say, you know, I mean, Nescoin back in 2001 was pretty clear about commercial development along the shoreline or in Nescoin in general. That's in the plan, that's in the comp plan. So that makes it easy. I mean, it was a very clear message. Nescoin is not going to be a commercial center.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you go and you have to make a decision, even on conditional use, well, you know, we can put like Lynn said, a gas station here or whatever. Does it fit within, you know, within the description of what the community is going to be by the community itself? So that's
Guy, I think you've just given the perfect example of how we could tee up for a group audience at the appropriate time, April, May, whenever. You know, it could be the Guy seminar on conditional uses and why we need to pay attention to them.
Mhm.
Seriously.
Yeah.
So, and I think if we tee it up in that way, where it's like, okay, so now we want to spend 30 minutes talking about conditional uses. And here's an example where Nescoin, correctly identifying what it wanted, got put into the community plan and prevented Nescoin from becoming just another commercial, you know, location on the coast. We established a value that we were going to be all these things, and we put it in. And so then we could use that very example to say, now we're going to look at all the conditional uses under the various zones. I was just looking through some of them. And we want you collectively, with the common sense of all of you, which should never be ignored. What are the things that just kind of jump out at you is we don't want that on our conditional use list, right? The wind turbine in someone's front yard on the beach.
Yeah.
You know, we can give some of those examples. You know, one of the things I was thinking about, the 2-family dwellings that Nescoin already has, we have multiple sites of 2-family dwelling. And it's clear they went through a conditional use process, not the duplex, not the very old duplex that I stayed in as a child, but the more newer, the last 20-year developments they did go through conditional use, and in some cases, the county or the community said fine. So I value your point. I think it's important to create it, and I think it'd be fun for people to have that kind of, here's where Nescoin charted its course and it worked out well for all of us. We realized our goal. And so let's look at community uses or conditional uses, and not in a, we're going to decide for you which ones to take off, but you, all the people who are engaged in this process, what do you see as maybe creating a problem for us down the line? And see what they come up with. I mean, it's been so long since 2001. I'm very curious where people's heads are at right now, because most
Yeah.
people I know just kind of love Nescoin and think it's a very, 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 very special place. It doesn't matter where, I mean, you know, my contractor's dog is named Nescoin because they went there once and they thought it was the coolest thing they ever saw. So the nicest family beach place for people. So I support what you're saying, and I think we can do it. And I think we need to ask the county to create that little one-page summary for us of here's the zoning ordinance, here's the conditional uses, and then it's a handout and appeal to people's
we can do
common
that.
sense. And
Yeah, and
Yeah.
anybody can do that. It's, as you know, it's right
Yeah.
on the web,
we
but
just take it off the web. But I think it's an important discussion because, you know, when you're in a conditional use process, if it's something serious and, you know, God forbid it's Facebook, with all that money, in this day and age, you're up against some pretty serious stuff. At a minimum, you're up against a lawyer. And if it's Facebook, you're up against a really good lawyer. So
4 lawyers. One
Oh,
from New York,
oh yeah.
2 from Texas, 1 from California. I'm serious. At every hearing we had 4 lawyers from all over the country against Tierra del Mar.
Yeah. And the county, you know, the county can say, as they said when I was trying to build a garage take my carport and make it a garage, we don't have the staff anymore we don't have the capacity, we don't have the bandwidth to do this stuff very often or very fast. And so conditional uses have even greater meaning in that environment because the county can't process them fast. And that makes it really hard for citizen involvement. I mean, because the lawyers come in and you're off to the races and, you know, no one can keep up.
And why the comp plan, you know, with 50,000 foot language, you can, in a way, protect yourself from changes that happen in society and technology and that over time. Who would have thought back in 2000 that there would have been a cable from Tierra del Mar to Asia running Facebook?
Mhm.
You know, that just wasn't, and even this whole area, I don't know how many, I think there's 8, 9 cables. We happen to be in a very cable friendly environment here with the topography of the sea, the ocean in front of us, the way the distance to the markets in Asia. So, you know, there's one at Wainima now. There might be another one at Wainima. You know, I think there's 5 or 6 in the Pacific City, at least 5, I think. Now Tierra del Mar. I mean, we're in this pocket. And so it's something we got to think about. And again, 24 years ago, no one was thinking of it. And clearly the Tierra del Mar people weren't thinking of it when they said, oh yeah, we don't have to worry about transmission facilities. So part of this language, that the broad comp plan language, protects you from things that we can't, you know, we'll never imagine 15, 20 years from now.
So, in a practical way, are there things that we kind of could know in advance that the county will always allow and that it's not worth discussing banning
Yes.
them?
So there are things, Lori, that legally we can't take out. I think things like foster homes, I'm trying to remember, there's a couple that the law prohibits us from removing. So what I can do as part of my assignment, let's say on the recommendations that came out of 2001, I can, one, say to the county, were any of those recommendations, illegal in a sense of the law not allowing you to do that? And the law's changed over time. I mean, there's some of those things that have been added that you can't take out since. So I can get that all set. I can go through the list of conditional uses and all the residential zones within our community boundary in general and with the broader CAC and say, which of those cannot be touched? I can do that before the next meeting, just as thing. But I think Lynn's idea of some kind of 30-minute land use 101, we kind of did that already, I think, in one of the, I'll have to go back and look at the I call them tutorials that we did. Jeff, do you remember if there was one on land use ordinances? I can't remember. I'll have to go. But if not, we can do, I mean, and Sarah and I, or, Melinda and I, or somebody could do. And I think people would find it, and we could point out some of the things that's happened in the county, just as examples, to kind of perk people's ears up a little bit. Yeah, wait a minute. Yeah, we never thought of that, kind of thing.
I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, we can schedule that. We got time.
And I think particularly to your earlier point, Guy, of saying, I always like to be able to give a positive action that produced a positive change. So the community previously said they did not want to be a commercially based community.
Right.
That got embedded and it worked. And
Right.
So I think showing people that we do have that vision and we have successfully managed it in the past, and it is great. And if so, we always just want to say this, people write off land use because they go, oh gosh, it's all about, it's about people trying to build stuff, or it's about people not wanting to build stuff, on either end of the spectrum. And we can show that it can be a constructive process for community values. That's kind of our goal here. And you've got great examples and great way of explaining it to people so they don't freak out and get crazy about it.
Right. Okay.
So just to wrap up, Guy, you're going to be speaking with the county, letting them know that you're authorized by the committee to do so. And you will come back to us with a list of the
Recommendations that have already been made, have been changed in the county, and those that haven't,
and why.
and why.
And then are you also at this point going to start talking to the county about conditional uses, or will that be a
Yeah,
part?
I'll get a list of things that we can't change.
Okay.
And I know that outright uses, they don't like to fool with. And so
Sure.
that would be a push. Although we're gonna have, my guess is we're gonna go, some of the changes that we made, I'm only guessing, some of the changes that we're gonna recommend. And if we have to vote on, it's gonna be a measure 58. We're gonna have to have a vote of everybody within the community boundary at a minimum. To accept the changes. We may want to consider there's some areas zoned Nesco in R3 that we may want to change to Nesco in R1. And some that are Nesco in R1 that may lend themselves more to an R3 things. And you can see the differences in not so much in outright, but in conditional uses. And that's something that's for another time to look at. And I'd like Sarah to be here, and we could have the zoning map and take a look at that and really think about, where those zones are. And yeah,
So,
We're gonna need a visual for our meeting.
yeah, we
We're
need a
gonna
map of
need to have a
zone
zoning
map.
map in the room
I think
to have a
Sarah said-
conversation. We should. Sarah
Jeff,
should be
don't
able
we
to
have
give us
a-
one.
We have a zone map as on our Google Docs, I think, a zoning map, but I don't know if it's specific enough.
There's one on the website.
Is
would
it is it lot by lot? Can you see it lot by lot?
I don't, I don't think it's quite lot by lot, but I mean, do you want me to
Yeah.
put it up?
could we
Well-
meet in person for that meeting? It's so much easier to look at those maps in real life. Could we meet in person or maybe as a hybrid and have Sarah just get her equipment out there and
Yeah.
do hybrid for that so that at least the committee was present and could look at the maps?
We
Rather
did, yeah, when we did the coastal hazard overlay zone, we had several meetings in the fire hall where we brought big poster maps.
Yep.
And the thing is, Dogami, unfortunately, the lines of the hazard zone were not, I mean, the scale wasn't such that you could see the exact, oh, did this cross my lot? Even at the corner? I don't know, that kind of thing. That's actually one thing that I think Dogami has better maps out that we may want to see. Bill Bush can maybe help us with that. I think he's been looking at maps and
Tom has gotten pretty handy with the county's GIS stuff, so he may be able to, if they have a layer for the zones, which I'm sure they do. He can probably
whatever we gotta do lot by lot, and
but he can probably get it lot by lot.
we also we need a better. We never did get a better lot with the coastal hazard overlay zone, and I also wonder if Dogami. I know that they've kind of updated their LiDAR information, whatever, and I know Sarah is kind of said already she doesn't want to redo the zone based on new LiDAR, but I don't know. I mean, that's something for us to decide. I mean, if the new LiDAR shows more areas under threat or different areas under threat, why wouldn't we want to? We're going to do a measure of 58 anyways, so that's one thing to look. It's one thing to talk to Sarah about.
back to the in-person thing. Does the fire hall have internet access?
No,
Is there a public, like, does the golf course, because the meeting won't be that big? I mean, I'd be
I
shocked if
don't
we
know
had.
about the golf course. Of course, the school does. We did a lot of for the coastal hazard overlay zone. We did several meetings at the school in the big hall in the back.
And Sarah was mentioning Kiwanda Community Center.
Yeah, that's kind of given in.
area.
I'm texting the golf course right now to see if they have internet. I don't know the answer to that question, but I just want to tell you while we're doing this, I just got a poll for a statewide poll or asked to respond to a statewide poll for Oregon on critical local issues. So I think it's karma from all those conversations.
Ask them if it's valid. Ask them if it's valid.
Well, no, I
How
know
are you
the-
going to use this? Don't use it as a voice of the people.
Yeah, it's a professional polling group. That's
Uh-oh.
anyway, so I'm deleting it, but I'm texting to find out about if the golf course has internet, because we'd be happy to host.
Well, we had a meeting last week that because of whenever the snow was, I can't even remember anymore, Friday, whenever the first snow thing, and we were scrambling to find a place because people couldn't get over the hill, and we were gonna. I think somebody called Missy, and she said the place is a mess. Everything's just stacked up everywhere. They're not ready at all to host anybody there. So,
Okay, well,
but that's for now, anyways.
yeah, we're having a board meeting Friday, so okay,
Uh-oh.
keep going.
She better clean it up then.
We'll find out.
What about like the Sands or the Lodge, or do any of them, or
We did when we were doing that again, the coastal hazard meetings, our committee, the place we for a while we did at the Proposal Rock, they have a meeting room. And we met there once, and then they said they wanted to charge us for meeting there, and it wasn't all that big. And so then we went out to the not motorhome, what is that place? The RV park.
Oh, yeah.
They have a nice big area, meeting area. And we met out there once, but as we discovered very unpleasantly, that the people at the RV park view all spaces as their own, no matter if you were meeting there or not. So we had people walking through, having coffee right next to us. It was the worst meeting we ever had. So that was the last time we met there. The school is the most secure, best place to have a meeting. That's what we found.
So, we were at a previous meeting, this isn't on the agenda, tell me, so you guys tell me if I'm inappropriate about bringing this up. But we had talked about reaching out in some way to the community each month. And we don't have a plan for reaching out in March. We're talking about doing a questionnaire at the NCAC meeting in April, but right now there's nothing that we're doing in March. So do we want to plan something that we could discuss at the next meeting and then implement in the last 2 weeks of March? And should we put that on the agenda, or do we want to skip March?
I think we should skip March for two reasons. One is spring vacation and the chaos that creates.
Yeah.
And two is, although I thought initially we should be communicating with people each month, as I learn more about your thinking in terms of what we need to do at each of these meetings, I think condensing it, making it more intense and less prolonged, if that makes sense, has value, because we're asking people to process really substantive information. I mean, they got to get through this stuff. And I just think people do that better if it's not prolonged over time. So I'm okay if I would just say, I think it's fine not to have a meeting in March. We have a meeting in April, and then we kind of keep hitting it from then till November, but it seems okay. It's been a really rough winter on people. The weather everywhere has been problematical. We've still got a lot of people in the metro area that aren't getting over to the beach at all because they have a tree on their house. This was a rough winter, so losing March would be okay in my mind.
But
That was a tree on their house, but I'm dealing with my sister-in-law who got dislodged with a tree going through her house and destroying her whole house. And she was not in a position to recover. And so Donna and I are just been dealing this morning with a demolition of her house and working with the insurance companies. It just destroyed her house. Big tree.
Ugh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Anyways, it's a mess.
Hi, this is Harvey.
I think Rand might have just taken off almost.
This is Harvey. Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure. I'm sorry.
I don't
Lori.
see the documents to which you are referring.
all of our documents are on the NCAC website. Which
I
document are you
can't find them on
asking?
the website.
Oh, they're hard to
Oh.
find, but they're there. Let me just look at my notes. They are, what you're looking for is the community plan. You're looking for the community plan, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so it is
Community
on
Plan Steering Committee.
the what?
The steering committee, our documents,
Community Plan Steering Committee.
right? They're there on the web. Jeff, you want to help them? They pointed out, or
So,
You want to send me an email? I'm fine if you send me a link on the email group.
well, I can put it on chat, or I can, but just to be clear what you're looking for, are you looking for just all of their documents? Are you looking, yeah, what
Well, what you
document?
talked about today, talking about looking at maps, looking at checklists, things like that, and I don't know to what you're referring, so I'm kind of a little bit in the dark.
So I'm not so we have a maps page, which I can put in the chat. But I don't know that like some of the documents are like county documents, I think, like that we don't necessarily have. Is that right guy that like
they're on the county planning website under land use ordinances. That's what I was going off of. And you can go halfway down the list of ordinances, and it has ordinances for Neskowin. And then the conditional use criteria that I was using is further down on that list, and it's got specific, I think, I can't remember number 11 or 12. It says conditional use procedures or something, and all the criteria for approving conditional uses are right there. That's all on the county planning website.
County plan, oh, so I gotta go to the county planning website.
Yeah, it's real, just put Tillamook County Planning. And then if you go to that website, it's hard to navigate. You have to go to that upper left-hand corner and you got those little 3 or 4 lines. Click on that, and then when it says land use ordinances, click on that, and that'll take you to where I was working on them.
Okay, well, I'll try and get that for our next meeting.
That'd be great.
So, Guy, is that all that you have for that agenda item?
For that one, yes.
Okay. The next 2 agenda items are Tom's, organizing the website and document library, which might have had information for Harvey, but that will now be at the next meeting. And Tom's first pass at dissecting the current community plan. Has he passed that information to anybody for?
No.
Okay. So I guess, so then the next thing on the agenda is public comment.
Can we talk about what you sent us? The proposal?
Is that supposed to go at the end as new business, or can we
Well,
do?
I thought you decided to move it to another meeting, to the next meeting, but
Oh, okay.
Right. Yeah, we did.
but
Can I make it just a general comment? I think it's all right.
Yeah.
But the reason why I proposed a 1 to 10 scale rather than a 1 to 3 scale is that I found myself when I first went through it, putting kind of needs change, for everyone. And I don't think it would communicate it enough as to what I really thought about each one of those values. I mean, some I really like, I would still like to make some changes in them. Some I don't think so I thought giving people more of an opportunity, like a 1 to 10 or whatever, you can kind of get a better sense of scale, because I would answer needs I can't remember what the middle one was, to every one of those, and I don't think it would tell us much.
I think
That was why I said what I did.
So I definitely at the next meeting, let's
We'll
discuss
talk about that.
the best way to, so I would like, at the next meeting, I'm gonna propose that we do some kind of a questionnaire for the NCAC meeting in April
Okay.
that gives people, each person that's at the meeting, an opportunity to respond to each of the values that are in the current plan.
Great.
And at our next meeting, we'll talk about exactly the best way to structure that questionnaire to get the information that would be the most useful from the audience.
Great.
Okay,
Great.
so we'll do that. Barbara or Harvey, do you have any public comment that you would like to submit? By the way, Barbara Triplett joined our meeting midway through.
I have no comment.
And also Mark Everett, chair of or president or whatever of the NCAC, has joined the meeting midway through. Barbara?
Yeah, I have a comment that's related to Harvey's inquiry. I'm pretty familiar with what's in the land use ordinances for Tillamook County, especially for Neskowin, because I've had to look at it a number of times since we've lived here for 15 years. And I've also pointed people in the neighborhood to those documents who find them very helpful in situations that they've come up with. My suggestion is that when and if you do have a public meeting, that you post the location of those documents very specifically in your invitation to the participants.
There you go.
So they can be a little ahead of the curve on trying to understand some of these concepts. And they're not going to memorize them, but they're at least going to have an idea of what's going on. That's it.
That's a good idea.
A-
Then
And I, to the extent that I don't think we should hesitate to ask the county that, to help us ensure that everyone has easy access for this process to the critical documents. I mean, I don't, whether it's creating the right links or, I mean, it is a lot to ask someone to go to the NCAC website. And the first time I tried to look for the community plan, I couldn't find it. And it's not anything wrong with the website. It's just the kind of zeitgeist of the website, the way it's designed is for the NCAC. So I think asking the county, saying we want to be sure these documents are readily accessible, links on the meeting invites, and please help us find the clearest way to do that is great, because that's our goal, is to have people, they can read as much of this as they can process.
And perhaps going back and looking at some of what Guy called the tutorials and see if there is something that's already there that you
Yep.
could point to
Yeah.
people to, and look at those tutorials before you dive into your conversation.
Yeah, I think we can put together some sort of portal where we link to stuff on their website in a more user-friendly way. Because
Great.
they're probably not going to be very responsive to us asking them to fix up their website.
No, that's right. It's something that that CAC needs to take on.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because
That's
they've great. I think that's great, Barbara. That's an important thing, and they can do that. We can do that.
Mark, do you have any comments?
No, I mean, I joined a little bit late. I was meeting with Sarah as CAC chairs earlier this afternoon, so apologize for getting here late, but I caught the conversation about the conditional use, and it's just fascinating to hear, Guy talk about all of these scenarios that have happened in coastal communities over the last, I don't know, 20 years or so. So I appreciate it. I appreciate what you're doing, and just attending these, learning things all the time. So thank you.
Guy, do you know how many conditional use applications come into the county on an annual basis?
Ooh, no. I can
Okay.
tell you that we, as a planning commission, usually average 3 or 4 a year to come before a hearing that are more when, the county has like a type 1, type 2, type 3 decisions. Anybody can appeal a type 1 to a decision, which is just a basic, like your garage or whatever, type
Right.
1. The
Right.
county staff can make that decision, but those are still appealable to the planning commission. Type 2, we have it so that the director, in this case, Sarah, can make a decision if she feels that it's still clear cut, but if she feels that there's enough community interest and concern about particular conditional use, she has the authority to bring it to the planning commission for a hearing to give public input into the decision. So those are about 3 or 4 a year, on average, sometimes more. So I don't know how many happen without coming to us. But that's how many are controversial in that way. So
So next,
the county also does the land use planning for like Nehalem and maybe Bay City. I can't remember. A couple of the cities contract with us. So that makes it interesting where we have to use their land use ordinance to make the decision. But
Well, and I think part of the discussion is going to be, and I have, only layperson's understanding of the scope of this, but the legislation before the legislature right now that allows the expansion of urban growth boundaries, to the modification of urban growth boundaries. That is a very intense process that takes a lot of staff time and people and consultants and lawyers and everything else. So there will, part of what we need to be mindful of is the environment we're operating in and the scope of current regulatory proposals on the table on how they will consume people's time.
Yeah, I think those are, I don't think any city, I think it's for cities over 25,000. That
So
legend,
so that's the parameter.
I think that's the thing. And boy, I was just read an article that I know this is not apropos to what we're talking about, but there was a question whether the land that and generally they could add to within their community growth boundary was so small that they're not sure it was worth staff time to do it, but we'll see.
Interesting.
All good
Okay.
intentions. They want to increase housing and but we'll see how that
Yeah.
works. But I don't think it affects Tillamook County.
Okay.
What's going to affect us is what Sarah has yet to bring to us is the legislation that specifically deals with Tillamook County. And I don't know,
Yes.
Mark, if you got any of that today,
No.
what's the plan or what's the schedule for them to roll that out with their consultant?
I did hear her say that the consultants are on board, but we just got immersed in other topics today, Guy, and just kind of ran out of time. But so I didn't get any information on that.
So that actually is a question, when we start talking about zoning and conditional uses, ideally, would we get our Nesquint things on the table first before we start talking to the consultants and the state? Or I mean, which would you consider positive for the order of things if we can make it happen?
Well, I don't think we have any control over the order, Lori. You know, I think when Sarah's ready to come to us with a consultant, it's just, that's when it's going to happen. I mean, I think what may be interesting is, as I understand it, they're going to come to us with language that they want us to adopt. And how much flexibility we have in that language, I don't know. How that language fits within each zone of Nesquint, I don't know. I think there's, I don't know. It's going to be, this middle housing push is going to be, for unincorporated communities in Tillamook County. It's because most of the unincorporated communities are on the coast, are coastal communities, and how you make this work in a coastal community like Nesquint or Oceanside or whatever, I don't know. We'll see. But yeah,
What's the point in coming to us if we don't have any say?
That's a good question. We'll find out. And we've kind of asked Sarah that. Remember an earlier thing? Is this language that we're going to have any say in? I don't know. I haven't got a clear answer yet.
It seems important to me, just in terms of the integrity of the process and giving people a real bite at the apple of this, that piece has to come first. And the county has to present it. The county has to bring that forward in an articulate way, because I think it's going to be a lot for people to process. And so if we go to a bunch of work and we design something, we suggest additional conditional uses or eliminate whatever that all looks like, and we get down that road and people have been weighed in and given their thoughts and their thinking, and then it's like, oh, and by the way, to do the middle housing piece, we have to do this, and we don't have any control over it, and it needs to all influence all that work we just done. I just would like to hear the county say how they see those two processes working together, so that we minimize confusion, conflict, and kind of exhaustion.
So when we did that first poll at the NCAC meeting, the two primary things that people said they were concerned about were values and vision and infrastructure. And we as a committee have been talking first about values and vision and zoning code, because we think that will have a big effect on Nesquint's future. But if we need to wait for these consultants and Sarah to give us something solid to work with the middle housing, maybe we should jump in our order of things and do the values first in the April and May meetings, and then jump to the infrastructure, and then do the middle housing, and then do the code changes. Just a suggestion.
How do we do? So I think I really appreciate that outline, and I'm mindful that I just jumped in putting it on my notes, but how do we do infrastructure without knowing the middle housing piece?
Well, a
gonna
lot of
be-
that was like beach access, water, sewer, roads. I mean, those things, middle housing or not, are gonna be, I mean, I think most lay people, and I'm one of those, think about how does it affect, what do I need to use and how does it affect me and what do I want fixed or working well? And I don't know if they would be, I mean, I just am not sophisticated enough to know how much different those plans would be based on middle housing. But when we got to middle housing, I guess you would say, oh, we need to go back and refine what we were talking about with the infrastructure based on what the middle, but you have to start talking about one or the other. You can't just wait.
No, Lori, it may be, because I do think the community plan in terms of visioning, one of the things we should include about its infrastructure, it may be something we can do while we're waiting on this land use stuff, is to go to the water district, go to the sewer district, and ask both of them, what is your vision for the future? What is it that you would like to see the community do in regards to protecting its source water and drinking water system? What would you like to do in terms of enhancing its sewer district and the system we have? I think those things would be helpful for it. We're going to need to do it anyways. I'm on the water board and I can start right now, but I'm not, I mean, I can tell you things that really need to be done and what we hope for the future of Nesco to protect its water, and also things of expansion of the district. Sewer's got an expansion issue. It's not covering its whole district with services. Roads, you know, what if I'm just throwing this out, this brainstormer. What if we recommended that we turn all of Nesco into a road district? So we can take care of our own roads. Roads are a huge issue here. You know, even in South Bend, Barbara's off now, or I think she's off, can't see.
She's on. She's here.
What if, you know, we ended up as the community advocating for our road district to be a kind of a uniform thing and a tax district. I know they have a road district over in South Beach, but it's not a legal one. They can't tax people. They depend on volunteer participation. So anyway, I mean, that's an example of something. The beach access things are huge issues because they're county roads that go to the beach. All of our beach access points are county roads, even Corvallis. And how do we maintain those when they're county property? What's our hope and vision there? I don't know. I think that you're onto something and maybe we can start that now.
So if that's the case, if we could, so that does create a pathway where you could start with values, April and May. And Lori, you were saying infrastructure like the next chunk of time, and then the middle housing. And so
Well, and also the infrastructure, it's very tangible. A lot
Yeah.
of people care about one or the other of those issues, and they might not care about middle housing.
Yep. So, and also there's limits. Even if the goal was to have 2,000 middle housing units, there are limits, there are geographical limits, there are water limits, there are sewer limits, there are septic limits. So, you know, maybe that is the right way to proceed. And you're right, if particularly in the middle of the process, if we have an issue that people really care about, that will keep our numbers up for people participating, which is really important to the quality of the product. So I think, and the water and the sewer, I'm sure, have to have plans in place just for their regulatory requirements at the state and federal level.
And we just did at the water district, we're in the process of completing a required survey for the state that, in a sense, summarize, it will tell the community how much more water it has, how many more units we can support. So a unit would be, if you have a single home, that's a unit. If you have a duplex, that's 2 units, that kind of thing.
Right.
So we're doing that analysis now. I mean,
Great.
and we could say to Nescoin, here's, given the water source we have, here's your limits. Here's our limits. And then, of course, the other thing about, and I'm sure as again, a water board member, we would say to the community, we need to own or control all of our watershed to protect the water. I mean, right, I was up there this week, but it's Tuesday, last Thursday, Friday, Saturday, our intake was shut down and we couldn't take water in because it was so full of sediment and everything from the runoff and some of the clear cut up on top. You know, it's not holding soil. Soil's running through, so we just shut the intake down. It had been shut down for 3 or 4 days. The timing of those shutdowns, as you can see, I mean, we're lucky in that our usage is low right now. So our tanks are full and we can support the community, but it's things like that we can, and we've made that argument. And I do think that's on one of the tutorial things that we did was on source water protection and the importance of controlling our watershed here.
Well, that's actually another good point. Those informational town halls. I mean, we had the people from the water department, the fire department, the
Right.
sheriff's department, and we could go back and, I mean, people could look at them themselves, but we could also see what those recommendations were in those, or maybe even refer to the survey that we're not using as a survey, but the questions that were asked, and use those as a basis for, you know, starting a conversation.
Yeah, and you remember the recommendations that come out of this, and we want to, you know, think of that one about the fire department and the sheriff's department and that. Remember, we voted on a extended sheriff's, what is it? There's a technical name for it, extended sheriff's district, or I can't remember. We went in with Pacific City. We wanted to, you know, create a sheriff's district between Pacific City and Nescoin and hire our own sheriffs. I mean, they'll be part of the department, but they would be designated for this community. And that didn't work, but I mean, that could be part of the vision, is increasing safety and security for the future. And recommendation is to go back and re-explore, you know, explore that idea of a special sheriff's district. The other thing, moving the fire district out of the tsunami zone.
Yeah, so I don't know, how do we do we want to somehow officially say in the minutes that we're thinking about a certain kind of progression of how
You know,
the,
if we want to say in the minutes, assign me, or somebody else wants to do it, is okay, to contact both the water district manager and the sewer district folks and ask them for kind of a general statement of what their vision, their needs, how they see the future, how they want to be, you know, in terms of the next 20 years in Nescoin. What is it that they see the direction of their particular service? I could do that before our next meeting, a couple of weeks. Sure.
I think that would be great, because Lori, I think your outline of kind of, you know, April, May is values, June, July is infrastructure. We need to get a heads up from Sarah on when the middle housing piece is going to be ready for us. You know, we're trying to be done by November, so we need to know when is that piece going to be available to us. And that allows us to plan. And Guy, if you can, before our next meeting this
Yeah.
month, be great to know what they're thinking and so that we
Sure.
can plan our meetings.
Yeah, and it won't be a final thing. It'll just
Yeah.
be, give us some general idea of where what your thinking is over the next 20 years. And also in terms of what your limits are in terms of service.
Right.
Like, I know that's what we're doing in the water district now, is preparing a report as to what our limits are. I don't know where the sewer district's at with that, but
So should we ask the fire chief and the sheriff to give us something and see if they respond?
let's do 2 at a time.
Yeah, September will be safety month for the the police and the or the sheriff, excuse me, and the fire department.
So
I
just as a warning to you all, as Lori knows this, that every Wednesday morning, somewhere between 10 and 11 o'clock, a state trooper sits down here on 101, right down by our road. I think Mag's even in our road on Edelman. And every Wednesday morning, somebody gets a couple people get stopped for speeding coming down the hill and on the straightaway. So I'm always sitting up here and I hear the honk, honk, all those siren pull over every Wednesday morning. So that's the only time our road is patrolled. So just stay clear.
Yeah.
Maybe there's special donuts at the marketplace that day.
That's what I thought, you know. And when if he's late, I always think they must be really fresh that day. Maybe sometimes it'll go up to 11 or something, but anyways, okay, that's fun. All righty.
Okay, well, the next thing on the agenda is to wrap up the meeting, establish the major agenda items for the next meeting, and confirm the schedule of the future meetings.
I think we've got our assignments for next meeting, which is
So-
that's the agenda.
Right, but review them both for Lynn and for me. So that we know what they are.
Well, the first one that we tabled from this one that we're going to do on the next one is the questionnaire for the NCAC general meeting in April.
Yep, got it.
And then Tom had 2 from this meeting that got tabled, organizing the website document library and first pass at dissecting the current community plan. So those are going over from this meeting. And then we get to the ones that we are
So
at.
Lori, quick question about that one for my notes. Isn't that something Tom already had and that's specifically his work tasks? Or do I have that wrong?
My understanding of that item was that he was presenting it to us so that we were
Right.
able to actually like see it and that he would go through it with us. It could be
Yeah.
something that he
Right.
posts it.
My guess it was going to be a kind of a progress report that he aspirationally assigned those tasks to himself the last time, and we were going to see how far he got. So 'cause
So
he's been pretty busy with bylaws.
Jeff, is there a way, if he's ready, that we can see a draft in advance and stay within the open meeting rules?
He can send it to you all as long as you don't talk about it in email.
Okay.
Okay, Okay.
So that would be helpful.
yep, got it. Then we had the Guy show.
Yeah, guy had like 5 things or something.
Yeah, Guy, do you want to summarize make sure we've got them all?
Well, I'm going to do the recommendations,
Yep,
both in terms, in particular, hopefully, if I can get the county, which ones have been adopted, which ones haven't, which ones are off limits for us to make changes in terms of conditional use or any use. I think those are the only 3 in terms of land use.
yep,
What I need to do, and I was just thinking this during the meeting, in the county comp plan to pull out any references to Nescoin. I've got to take a look at that and see if there's any specific thing in the town plan. I think there is, but I'll check that out. So that's land use ordinances. Um,
Water and sewer.
water and sewer. I think that's it.
Got it?
Then is there any new business we need to add?
Well, there was one just, and I don't know how you want this documented, but it's on our notes, which is the conditional use school. The guy.
Oh,
conditional
yeah.
use.
Would that happen after the May meeting and the infrastructure talk?
It could happen. I think it ought to happen probably. I mean, if you think about when we're going to go to the community and have specific recommendations about what to pull or not pull from the uses. So it's got to be before that. And it probably in close. So are we going to do that this summer?
I would think August. In my head, if we
Yeah.
think about April and May as values, June and July is infrastructure, August and September is zoning and conditional uses. That's August and September. October is finalizing things or getting final draft, and November is passing it.
Sounds good. So August, let's shoot for August for the lack of a better term, guy show on land uses.
And do you need an agenda item for that, or is that just like
No, I
something
just think
decided in
just
this
as an
meeting?
assignment. Yeah, that's just my assignment.
So Lori, in that scenario, which I really like, where it's 1, values, 2, infrastructure, 3 is zoning and conditional uses. Are you including the public safety issues and the middle housing issues in the zoning conditional uses, or no? Do they become 4 and 5?
So to me, the public safety is part of infrastructure. If I was gonna just lump them, and the middle housing, I'd put with the conditional uses and the zoning, and hopefully, like Guy said, middle housing first. But I think we'll have to just do middle housing whenever we're allowed to, don't you think? Like Sarah would be the one.
Yep,
Exactly.
so that's great. That works out perfectly. I was having the safety stuff in with the infrastructure is great.
Okay. I think we're at the end of the agenda and we're 20 minutes early, so
So,
Well,
so
we can still
for your
talk.
next meeting, currently you are scheduled for 2 p.m. on March 19th. I believe Lynn is not available until 3 p.m. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm sorry I didn't remember this when we talked about it last time, but I will be sitting down for a dental cleaning at 2 p.m. on March 19th, which means that if you want to keep 2 p.m. or we will have to get someone else to run Zoom. Which maybe we can do. There might be someone who can do that.
Can we
But
go-
we don't
can we go
know.
Later. What if
Three
we
would
go at 3
be-
o'clock? Can you make 3 o'clock or?
Well, 3 o'clock, I like my dentist is in McMinnville, so I can probably start the meeting and make someone else the host, but I don't want to sit in McMinnville for 2 hours.
About
Yeah.
4
So-
o'clock.
Yeah. Well, yeah, if you want to do it 4 o'clock, I should be able to get back close, but you might have to wait for me because I may not be back at 4 o'clock sharps. So
My afternoon is flexible, so everyone else say what you think.
So I can do 4 o'clock. It's meeting week because it's the week before spring break in Oregon, but I have a 5 o'clock commitment.
Mhm.
So I can be on the phone from 4 to 5.
Hmm.
Is 3 better for you?
Yes.
okay, and
So
so I
maybe-
can, like I said, I should be able to start the meeting and start the recording and make someone else the host and then drop off and drive home. Or phone, I can then phone in, like just so that I can
Hmm.
but so Tom probably can do it. I'm just worried like today Tom had a medical appointment thing and I'm worried that like Tom had to leave, so we can't get a firm commitment that Tom definitely will like block off that time and not be blocked off. So
Right.
so we're at risk of like scrambling to get things to work or having to cancel at late notice or something.
Well, or we could do the backup plan of asking Nancy or Chris.
Right, we can definitely see if one of them can do it, and there's a pretty good chance. Like I think Chris works from home as long as he doesn't have like a meeting that he has to be in. He probably can hop on, start the meeting, and either just kind of hang out in the background. So we can ask him.
But what time are we thinking of starting?
3.
And do we still need to be on Tuesday? We can't be on, is there a reason we couldn't be on Monday of that week?
I thought it was easier for Ran, but
Because if travel schedule, though, that
yeah.
might
Is he
change.
gonna be there on Tuesday?
He was hoping to be.
Yeah, it's because I mean he was hoping to be here today and he had his travel screwed up. So
He just took off about 20 minutes ago.
okay, so I would say like scheduling around Rand seems like a
Yes.
bad plan because I mean he should be like he's on vacation. He should just be enjoying his vacation.
Yes.
Exactly.
Especially since it's like super late at night and where he is right now.
I
Okay.
think we should, if we can move it to Monday, that would help me tremendously. I'm just packed on Tuesday. If we
Mhm.
need to leave it on Tuesday, great, and let's start at 3 and put in the logistics to do it. But if Ran is still in Europe on Tuesday,
Yeah,
then I think we should let him be on vacation and schedule for Monday, and I think he would maybe even appreciate it. I don't know.
Let's do it Monday, our normal times, switch back. I'm sorry, Jeff, but it
Yeah.
makes it easier for me because I'm kind of boxed in on late afternoon on Wednesday with another board meeting.
Mhm.
So Monday works, and as we've already seen with Ran, I mean, when you're on traveling, you can't, it doesn't work.
Yeah, there's just it's
You can't tell where I'm going to be at 8 o'clock on whatever day.
right, especially when it's like the hour when you're supposed to be out having like delicious food at
Yeah,
late at night in some wonderful European city. So
there you go.
um,
So would we say 2 o'clock on Monday, March 18th?
Sounds great to me. Yeah.
okay, so I will notice that like within a week. Like I'll make sure I'll do it at least because I'm probably going to send that out notice for that. I'm going to attempt to send out notice for that and notice for the executive meeting at the same time. So like just to keep the number of notices down. Now in March or in April, do you anticipate that you're going to be back to your normal schedule and meet on April 1st? Which is Monday.
yes.
Sure.
I don't see
Okay.
why not. It's April Fool's Day.
Yep. So we could be lying. You could just show up and I won't open the meeting. Ha ha ha. Like, okay.
For some reason, why do I have down April 8th and 22nd as already set for us as meetings? Was that just something where I was being too linear with my calendar? So it's April 1st and then April 15th, or,
So if we stick to every 2 weeks, it'll be because
Yeah.
2 weeks from today -1 is March 18th, and then 2 weeks from that is April 1st.
okay, so April 1st. Okay, so April 1st and then April 15th.
And then April 29th.
Okay,
And Rand did send out a document, which I didn't double check if he but that's my understanding. I can double check that, and if it's
Okay.
wrong, yeah.
no problem. I changed it. Thank you.
And so we'll need to let Tom know.
Yes.
And Sarah.
Yep. Okay. So I think we're good for the schedule.
I would suggest that we adjourn the meeting unless someone else has something to say.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye, everybody.
Nice
Bye.
to meet you, Harvey.
I think he's gone.
Okay,
He's there still.